Welcome back. If you've missed my previous videos, I am attempting a ratings climb on chess puzzles, and the idea on most of these is to look for checks or checkmates, threats, sometimes piece exchanges or material advantages. Here I have been, looks like, gifted a free bishop, but I also have a check with the rook straightforward. Oh, you know what? I noticed I also have this check. This is why it's important to look for multiple checks. As I was checking this knight, I first saw the check on this square, which is a fork of the king and rook. It is guarded by, however, by the queen. But when I saw this check, I realized white has no pieces guarding that square, and the knight then would guard the only escape square. So I believe that is checkmate. Okay. And here, my rook is in danger, nothing guarding it, and it looks like nothing can guard it. However, I have a protected check on this square, which black is not guarding, and the queen here would guard escape squares except for that one. Now, if I did that, check, and the king goes here, do I have a follow-up check or capture? That's the question. I do not. Well, technically I do, but that square is guarded by this queen. So that may not be the best move. I have not a free capture here. Again, that square is guarded by black's queen. And obviously this one is guarded by both the queen and the pawn. Wow, it looks like after I make this check, you know what? I do have a follow-up check. After the king moves, then I would have this check with the knight. And the queen on this square would continue to be guarding this entire row and that square, so the king would then have to move one further, and then that would be checkmate. Okay, so let's try that. Use the knight, and then checkmate. All right. That took a little too long for my taste, but I would rather take extra time on these and get them right than miss them. So let's see. Currently, I have the king cut off here, and the knight guarding this square, and the queen with a protected check here, which would force the king over. It looks very similar to the previous one. I just have to watch out for this. As soon as this bishop moves, I would be in check. But once the king moves, let's see, if I went check first here, the king moves, then I would have a protected check here, still protected by the bishop. And that would leave the king only this escape square. Which, how would I get there? If the king is over here, my queen is here. I could not come down because of the rook. This would not help because the king would be over there. I still think that's the best way to start this. Let's see, do I have any other checks? No, nothing. Yeah, that's not check. And again, I'm in danger if I don't do check immediately. Obviously have this check, but that's guarded by the pawn, so that would be silly. This rook is trapped. There's something I'm not seeing, but I'm going to try this to avoid dead air. And again, I know I have this follow-up check, but perhaps this follow-up check is better. Because, yes, that's better, because then that guards this square for my queen. Okay. Got my rating above 1200. Let's see if I can keep it going. I see that the king and queen are lined up, which makes this really attractive, skewering the queen. However, the knight is guarding that square. I don't know if there's a easy way to get rid of that knight. Doesn't look like it. This knight is hanging. If the king somehow moves here, then the rook would be hanging. Sometimes it's just a capture of material, in which case then taking the knight would be the best move. But I don't think that's the case here. Let's see. If I go here, the knight captures, then I can say check, but the king then would just move. Or the pawn would block. So I don't think that's it. Oh wow, I missed perhaps an obvious one right here. I think actually that would be checkmate. Yes, oh good grief. That took way too long. But that happens sometimes. Sometimes we're accustomed to pawns blocking checks or attacks or threats, and this is why I do puzzles, because the idea is eventually these tactics will come in handy in a game. I see a check here protected by the knight. However, it looks like the king would just move out of the way, threatening my knight, and I don't have a good way to protect it. I have a check here with these squares guarded by the rook. That would force the king to the back rank, one of these two squares. And then with my knight here guarding the two escape squares, then my rook goes back. I believe that's going to be the answer here. Okay. And now, when I say check, there will be nothing black can do, except block temporarily. Okay. The king has just moved out of check. It only had two choices. Oh no, that square was guarded by the bishop. Okay. Let's see. Is anything guarding this square? Yes, the bishop is. So that would be a bad idea for me to say check here. With the queen, anyway. What if I said check there with the bishop? Then they would capture, and then I have nothing protecting. Any other checks? Yes, the oft ignored knight check, which leaves the king no escape squares here because of the queen. The king would have to go back. Then maybe I could check with the bishop. I don't know, but I am going to say that this is the first move. Okay. The king has gone where I expected it to. Now if I check with the bishop, the knight guards the two escape squares, these two escape squares. The obvious move would be for either the bishop, for the king to go back, or for the bishop to capture. If the bishop captures, then my queen comes forward. So I'm going to do that. Okay. The bishop did not capture. Now I have a protected fork of the king and queen right here. So I'm going to do that. See, this one is one of the longer ones. It just keeps going. Do I preserve my bishop, or do I take the bishop? If I take the bishop, the rook comes in. I think I just take it. Okay. That was a few more steps than I expected. And now I'm over 11 minutes, so this will be my last puzzle today. Hopefully I get it right and maintain this rating. Okay, I do not have an immediate check because this pawn is guarded. My king is not in immediate danger because this is fruitless. This bishop isn't pointing at my king in any way. I can take the bishop and then say check. They're about to promote, but I have check, which then wins this pawn. Okay, thank you for watching. If you saw something that I missed or an explanation that I didn't understand, or if you have a question, feel free to leave a comment.